Salim, Ismail, serial entrepreneur, Silicon Valley, who had between 2007 and 2008, you were head of Brickhouse. You were spearheading innovation at Yahoo.
Yes.
Laugh now. You're supposed to laugh.
Well, I had a great time doing it.
Did you spearhead any innovation?
We did. Well, you know, the idea was not to, there's already a ton of innovation there. The idea was, how do you allow it to come to market? In a large operating company, there's very little place for a small, nimble idea to take hold. And so what we did was, there was 3,000 ideas around Yahoo, and my team and I looked at all of them. And our job was, at any given point, we should be building out the top 5. So Yahoo Pipes was one of the inspirations for this model. Fire Eagle, which was a location-based system, came out of it. And a lot of the ideas that have come out are now showing up in Twitter, Foursquare, Zynga, etc.
So in other words, Yahoo didn't innovate. They lost all the innovation to other people.
Yes.
So what did you learn and how can you educate our audience about how to screw up, how a company which had been the paragon of innovation 5, 8, 10 years ago now has become, in some ways, really just a joke?
So a joke is a bit of a strong word. They still have that.
Well, I could think of some stronger words, which I won't. It's a family program.
Fair enough. There's 2 or 3 things important here. I think what happened at Yahoo, and I've written about this, is that by accident they implemented a classic matrix structure to manage the organization, which is products down the verticals and then functional areas like marketing, PR, privacy, branding down the horizontals. And that structure, which is great for managing large corporations and it's good for command and control, it's terrible for every time you try and do something, it takes a long time. You have to get clearance from all those different layers. And also that structure—
Whose responsibility was that?
I think it was Terry Semel who put it in. I don't think he was fully aware of what he was doing.
The same Terry Semel who passed on buying Google, right?
Yes, but you know, you have to remember that at the time everybody had a search engine, and it was Terry also grew the company 10x in 3 years. That's quite something in terms of revenues and so on. So there's some pretty incredible. He saved the company the first time around, but he put the structure into managed growth, and that structure also disincents risk taking. So if you're on the internet, the 2 attributes you have to have are speed and risk, and the org structure that Yahoo has is antithetical to the industry they're in. And my indictment of senior management, if there is one, is they don't see that. They don't see how that structure is calcified, and it's preventing the company from doing anything. You can put the best people into an old structure, and they're not going to be able to do anything. And Yahoo had unbelievably great people. It was an extraordinary, amazing place to work.
What advice then would you give the companies now that have the vitality and originality of Yahoo, obviously Facebook or Twitter, or perhaps even Google? How do they maintain their vitality, their originality, their innovation as they grow?
Yeah, so the first is use small teams at the edges of the organization and give full accountability to the small teams. I think it's important to do corporate incubation and corporate innovation at a corporate level for every company and have it report directly to the CEO, because it provides the eyes and ears of the CEO. The difficulty is in most companies, when you do corporate innovation, this incubation model, the immune system of the company will come and attack you. And that's just a facet. A large company is essentially an organism, and it has antibodies, and it has an immune system. And those companies, those things will come and attack. So you have to manage that and morph it and mutate this model constantly, and then it works. But generally, on the internet, if you don't have small, fully self-reliant, accountable teams taking risks at the edges, then you will fail.
But is that really what happened at Apple? Or
no,
what has happened at Apple?
Apple's a different mechanism, because you have an incredibly inspirational figure and a top-down mechanism, right? And
which can work.
Which can work, but you have to, the entire organization has to line up behind it, and you can do a few things very, very well. And that's what Apple does. They have a few products, and they iterate them incredibly well.
Do you think that Apple is a one-off?
It's not a one-off, but I think we'll learn from Jobs-type thinking and implement that elsewhere. But I think you need that inspirational figure, and they're very rare to come by.
Is Amazon like Apple?
Yes, Amazon, I mean, look at Jeff taking the risks that he does on a constant basis.
But
right?
he's not as dictatorial as Jobs, is he?
Probably not. No, he's not.
Which would be hard, of course.
It would be very hard. But also, that unique design, that emphasis on design, requires that kind of discipline to implement, right? The secrecy and all the rest of it that comes along with that. I think Jeff is doing an incredible job at Amazon, pushing the envelope nonstop. Look at what they're doing with web services. I mean, they're 2 years ahead of everybody else in the game.
Salim, what company in Silicon Valley is an argument for the innovation around the edges that you spoke about?
Oh, there's many of them. I mean, Twitter, Zynga, Facebook. Facebook is a great example. Look at the size of the company and look at the way they're constantly pushing the edges, right? I think the core attribute is you have to build constant risk-taking and constant improvement very dramatically into the core model. You can't build it to a certain point and then sit on your laurels.
Is that what Salesforce is doing?
Yes, absolutely. Salesforce is another example. They're constantly pushing the edges. If you don't do that, the smaller, nimbler companies will come and attack you.
And what about Google?
So Google is an interesting one. I think Google grew incredibly quickly, and they started to calcify. And I watched with great interest when Larry came on board. The first thing he did was start to strip out the internal control mechanisms. And he's trying to keep it as nimble and as possible. It's hard to do. I think my observation has been once you get to a company about 10,000 people or higher, the controls that you need to put in prevent that kind of risk-taking from taking place. So managing that balance is very hard. And nobody's ever solved that problem. We've never seen this requirement that a large company has to be this nimble and this fast-moving and this risky. And that's a new paradigm, a new animal that we've not seen in the business world before.
And to borrow a word from Carol Bartz, is Yahoo fucked?
Yes, I think the only solution is to buy it and take it private and retool it.
What's your read of AOL?
I love what Tim is trying to do.
You might have heard that they bought TechCrunch.
I'm very watching it with great interest, and I think Tim has to be given great credit for picking a strategy, articulating it, and executing against it. And it's the thing that Yahoo's not doing, is picking a vision and executing.
So you think AOL has a chance?
No. And I say that because I think the environment is moving so fast that if you fall behind a little bit, you're behind an 8 ball, and it's too hard to catch up.
Can anyone catch up? I mean, Apple did it. There are no other examples.
Apple did it by taking kind of a blue ocean strategy and creating an entirely new market, right?
Are there any second acts now in Silicon Valley?
Oh, I think there's nothing but second acts. I think there's unbelievable new opportunities opening up everywhere. Look at medical devices. Look at
no, but I mean in terms
self.
of second acts, in terms of companies which have lost their innovative thrust. Are they essentially dead? Are they Yahoo'd?
Yes, they're dead. I think the environment is moving so fast. If you're not at the cutting edge, it's too hard to leapfrog. You have to go back and completely retool.
So speed is everything. At what point do we hit a wall? How much quicker can these cycles accelerate?
You know, I've been wondering that for a long time. It took all of history to create the first billion-dollar company in the 1940s, I think it was. It took about 30 years to create the next one, 15 years to create the next one. Google took about 8 years. Facebook took about 5. Groupon did it in 18 months, right? The metabolism of the economy is increasing. And the best analogy, and I'm actually writing a paper on this, the best analogy that's come up with from an old colleague called Malcolm Pollock is that it's like a phase change going from liquid to steam. You have a completely different paradigm of how you interact. The density of interactions changes. The heat is increasing. So I think the economy is cooking based on improvements and dramatic changes in technology. And some molecules, which are these internet companies, are escaping. And generally, we're heating up the entire environment, and I don't know what the asymptote is.
Your friend, Ray Kurzweil, the founder of Singularity University, I think, has come up with the idea of the 21st century that we'd be able to replicate whole decades or whole centuries in 25 minutes.
Yes. Well, I mean, this is happening now. If you heard Eric Schmidt, we created 5 exabytes of information from the beginning of time to 2003. Today, we're creating that same 5 exabytes in 2 days. In 3 years, we'll be creating that same amount of information in 10 minutes. Right? And that dramatic acceleration in information generation, if nothing else, will completely change the world. We're information enabling the entire world. Right? Our communications are now digital, not analog. Our relationships are digital. And every time, it's like a laser beam, every time you information enable a certain domain, it explodes in capability, in value, etc. And we did that with communications. Facebook did it with relationships. And we're starting to do that now with health as we information enable our health. And so as we take each of these different domains, I think you create a completely new paradigm. And in new paradigms, you have massive new opportunities.
Not only new opportunities, but new problems, Salim.
New problems.
Final question, can we keep up as human beings? I mean, Ray Kurzweil can because he takes a lot of pills, but what about mere mortals like you or I?
Well, we have had a history in, the Industrial Revolution, everybody said everybody's going to be out of work and society's going to collapse. And the same thing happened when the the printing press came out. I think we've adapted always very, very quickly. Our memories are now in our smartphones. They're not in our heads anymore. And I think we're expanding and extending ourselves as human beings very dramatically using technology. And so far, we've been able to keep up very, very well. And I don't think there's the kind of Terminator scenario where a new entity gets created outside the normal realm. But frankly, if you look at technology, we've always used it to expand the human experience. And I think that trend will continue.
Salim, Ismail, I think you're probably the fastest man I've had on my show. Thank you so much.
Good, thank you.